Middle call, heavy Habes. Middle call, heavy Habes.
It's always how Eddie Vedder held his mic whenever he was singing in like
Both
the
hands?
mid-90s. Yeah, just like. It's always what I would have done if I was a rock star.
Would you prefer to be rock star that does not play an instrument, only sings, or has the guitar slung over your shoulder to play the to play the whatever?
To me, I would like to have it'd be like I want to make my money from the pocket, but if I have to run, I can run. Like I'd want to be the rock star Eddie Vedder style where I'm doing this. I don't need the guitar, but like at any moment, my boys could go back and take that 10-minute break. You bring me the guitar,
Right.
Give me a stool, and I just melt the place for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's good. I like that idea. Because, when anyone pretends to be a rock star, they do the singing. And then when it's time for the guitar solo, they also do the guitar solo, on both. It's like,
yeah,
but that's usually not how it works, right? The lead singer isn't also the guy doing all the sweet guitar riffs.
Yeah, just, like a Metallica, he usually has a guitar, but they can't really operate without him singing.
Right.
He could also just stand there without a guitar and they're fine because the other two guys are just getting after it. But maybe he's just more comfortable with it around him. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he just gives you something to do. You play some chords, that type of thing. Daniel on the stream says Tito's was flowing last night. It's that season. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Always that season, baby.
We are sponsored by Tito's handmade vodka.
Ow! Ow, ow, ow!
Is that your way of telling me to continue doing the read?
No, I was just I was just excited, and then the dog looks at me, and I realized I probably shouldn't howl. We love Tito's. I had a Tito. I haven't had Tito's this week, but it's the week is young. I mean, it's Thursday
Tito's season.
Tito's. Get your Tito's. Might be doing a 24-hour trip on Friday to Vegas, so I might have a Tito's or two. That's for sure.
Oh, that one. Tito's are two. Or two?
Or about 7.
Oh, yeah, or 56. Tito's handmade vodka. Drink it responsibly, John. The original craft vodka in America. Tito Beverage himself has been making the good stuff for 25 years now. Back since 95, he just started serving it for free at some charity events. And the next thing you know, he was winning awards left and right. Check out Tito'sVodka.com for all kinds of recipes. That's where I go for my recipes. Although every time I think I'm going to do a recipe, I remember I just crack open a ginger beer, mix it with some Tito's. Why make it complicated? That's always my personal favorite. Or a John Daly. You grab some of those Arizona iced teas with Arnold Palmer on the cover and on the can. I like the half sweet. I don't need it too sweet. Although you could get the full sweet and then just use less of it. Mix it with the Tito's. Bing, bang, boom. Locked and loaded. Yeah, man. What
I really think an underrated drink and is very healthy is just to take, if you're a LaCroix guy, obviously there are a lot of different bubbly waters that are flavored. You pour that in with the Tito's, you have a vodka soda that is flavored. Yep. Whether it's cherry, lime, raspberry, women love it. I've never been a big bubbly water guy. I know some guys do. I don't. I just like drinking water, but I do love it in my cocktail, and it tastes great. But I can't, do you just drink a can of it?
I will sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it soothes the pipes.
Yeah.
But you spice up your water game. But in any event, that's a great idea. You just get a few of those in, mix it with some Tito's, maybe a little lime. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. Ben on the stream says, John, going to Vegas. Hopefully you do better than last Saturday, Sunday. LOL.
Yeah, I agree.
Error Dome says lock and dollars.
You got to fade us right now.
Yeah, we are sponsored by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team. Sign up with the code HAM. Bet $5 on any NFL team to win. Get $200 in free bets if they do. Pretty great. Sign up with the code HAM at the DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yep, guys. Same game parlays. How about those? You can combine multiple bets from the same game to give yourself a shot at even bigger winnings. How about this? You want to get a big same game parlay? Why don't we take a couple dogs? Commanders home against the Birds and the Lions going to Minnesota. Everyone's going to be on Minnesota. Everyone's going to be on the Eagles. Fade both of them. Pick them to same game parlay and win. How about that one?
Okay, there you go. One parlay I was thinking about. There's apparently at Caesars. I saw this tweet. So you could swing by there, I guess, that there's more money on Oregon State to cover against USC than any of the 16 NFL Week 3 game spreads. Over 300 times more money on Oregon State than any other college football Week 4 spread. All the sharps are on Oregon State. That game was 7, then 6.5, then 6. It's now 5.5. People are betting against USC being able to keep pace with what it's done, which is 10 takeaways, 0 turnovers. This game's at Oregon State. Oregon State loves to run the rock. Oregon State's got a really good offensive line, but they're missing their best tight end, their best pass catcher, who is Luke Musgrave. No nephew. Yeah, he is related to Bill, actually.
Oregon guys, right?
Like nephew. Yeah.
Good genes.
But it's 5.5. USC minus 5.5. A lot of people like Oregon State plus 5.5. I like SC. SC scores on 79% of its first half possessions. Oregon State is 45% first half possessions, result in a touchdown. Touchdown for SC, 79%. You could take 3.5 first half line if you wanted. Could Oregon State win? Yes. I think they do something really well that USC really struggles with, which is run defense. But it crossed my mind. You could parlay that, John, if you wanted. SC minus 5.5 or Oregon State plus 5.5. Again, the sharps love it. With Washington State money line, let's say, against Oregon, or you could money line both underdogs. Like those are two home underdogs in the Pac-12 this week that people think can win. You could money line both Oregon.
I like that better than the Lions and Commanders money line underdog.
State and Washington State, if you want Washington State against Oregon, but we've decided we're going to mix it up a little bit this week on our lock of the week, John.
Really quick, though, guy, you got to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use the promo code HAM, receive $200 in free bets in their free if their team wins after the $5 pre-wager. That's promo code HAM only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Download that now. Do that.
Glad you said that.
Vote yes, Prop 27 if you live in California.
Somebody commented that. That's somewhere around here, too.
Vote yes. Vote yes.
Vote for HAM. Okay, so lock of the week at DraftKings. $5 bet on any NFL team, get you $200 in free bets. We told you that. Lock of the week this week. We have lost our last 2 locks of the week, John, so we are mixing it up a little bit this week.
Yeah, we're going to call this the fade of the week. And I think overwhelmingly people are going to hammer the Kansas City Chiefs. Right now you can get them at 6.5. It started at 7. It's gone between 6, 6.5. They are on the road against the Colts. I was told by a little gambling source that a week ago, the look-ahead line before week 2, before the Colts got demolished by the Jags, was 2.5. Now, the Colts might suck, but I heard a stat that teams off a loss where they scored no points against the spread the following week are like 65% cover. And especially, I would imagine, when you factor in they're at home. So I just think the Colts, I would take the Chiefs. So would everybody else. Like, Chiefs are going to kill them, right? Fade us, take the Colts.
Yeah. And guess where the sharp money is on this game right now?
Colts.
That's right, on the Colts. Guess where the big money is right now? On the Colts. 46% of the money is 31% of the bet. So think about that. 31% of the bets is accounting for 46% of the money.
Do you think if Carolina plays the Saints, they lose, and Indy, obviously big underdog, lose this game, both teams at home, let's just say they both lose by 10-plus points, could Rule and Frank be out of a job Monday morning?
Good question. I think Frank is, because it feels like somebody wrote this the other day or said this, maybe it was Michael Lombardi, that I mentioned this, I think, on the podcast, that Chris Ballard kind of had to talk Irsay into keeping Frank Reich after, like, Irsay was furious with the Carson.
He wanted to throw Wentz out of the plane. He wanted to fire Frank.
Yeah. And so he's already kind of on thin ice. And if you're Ballard, there's only so many times your job's on the line that you're going to go to the mat for Frank Reich. Now, you could argue last year we started 0-3 and we almost made the playoffs. And Jim would go, yeah, but we didn't because we lost to the Jags in a must-win game. So let's stop starting 0-3. Only 5 teams in the history of the league have started 0-3 and made the playoffs. And they'd be the 0-2-1 if they were to lose this week.
But, Guy, if Herbert can't go this week, the Jags play Herbert. Or not Herbert and Chase Daniel. What if the Jags all of a sudden are 2-1?
Jags have the 5th. I mean, again, it's 2 weeks in, but Jags are 5th in points, defensive points this year.
Yeah, Trevor looks good. Doug's got some confidence back.
Yeah.
Bulky.
Resurrection, comeback player of the year, Trent Baalke.
What seed would they have to get for him to be executive of the year?
People
aren't going to want to vote for him.
No, they won't. But
could you deny him that if they're the 1 seed?
He'd be executive of the year as the 1 seed. I mean, it feels like if the Bills have a runaway,
long way to go.
Let's just talk about it real quick, right? Has Brandon Beane won it?
I would imagine he won it last year. Would be my guess, or he's won it before in his career. I'm going to his.
I think did John Robinson win it last year?
Yeah, Beane hasn't won it.
Did Titans? Did John Robinson win it last year? Maybe.
Feels like he would have.
And I'm guessing what's his name? The Bucks guy won it within the last couple. Jason Light probably won it 2 years ago. Be my guess.
Yeah, you got to have a really good number 1 seed level team. It'd be hard for Baalke.
So Buffalo to me, like Brandon Beane would be a candidate if Buffalo runs away with it. Who are your other candidates right now? Oh,
what about Veach? Make trade with the Chiefs or 13 wins? You trade one of your best players.
They've turned their team over. Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman. We might, he's got to be in the mix. John Lynch, obviously. It's hard right now, but I would say to me, Brandon Beane,
got a long way to go.
Everyone was tuned in, dying to know today who our executive of the year leaderboard is right now.
It's usually when you go from shitty to good, not good to good.
Right.
That's why Veach, I'm nitpick. Veach probably can't win it. They've been to the top team in the AFC for 4 straight years, right? Even Beane, it's usually a team that's bad. So I would say Baalke would be in the mix if they have an 11-win team.
Here's a question for you. Let's say now we're recording this before Thursday Night Football. And if you're listening to this podcast, leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching on the YouTube, hey, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel. If you hate something we do, leave us a comment or whatever. We appreciate it. What if Kenny Pickett takes over for the Steelers and they're good this year? Kevin Colbert has retired, right? He did the draft and then retired. But what if Kenny Pickett becomes leads the Steelers to the playoffs? Could Kevin Colbert win the award as a retired person?
Well, to me, if they were to win the division and Kenny Pickett's inserted here in the next couple of weeks, I would vote for him. Be a good swan song, right?
Swan song? I mean, he's gone. Swan's gone.
Maybe you ask him to unretire Brady style.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Miami, if Miami's really good, they
didn't win 19 games the last couple of years.
Okay. But Mike McDaniel's coach of the year candidate. I'm just saying, could you all the picks they got back for all the shit they did? Now, I guess if Tua works out, then Tua works out. But I mean, the Tyreek trade, that's pretty significant, and he looks incredible, right?
Would you say General Patton's candidacy early on's in some bumpy waters?
General Patton's candidacy is on some bumpy waters. Yeah. Russ is on pace to get another coach fired.
Yeah, yes.
By the way, now let's talk about it. There was an article in the Ringer, I think it was Ben Solak wrote about Nathaniel Hackett, and what he basically wrote was that the plan for the Broncos was to hire Nathaniel Hackett as a way to lure Aaron Rodgers, who not a free agent, but as a way to lure Aaron Rodgers to the team. So you could argue that was a hole in the plan. The fact
Devontae wanted to head back west.
Yeah. Now Aaron had said, there was a quote in the article at one point last year. Aaron said,
"No, it was 2 years ago. It was 20
years ago.
Yeah.
I hope Nathaniel Hackett doesn't go anywhere, or at least as long as I'm here, or unless I go somewhere, wherever it was. You may remember." Yeah. So the Niners, Kyle Shanahan this week is playing a coach and a team on Sunday Night Football.
Because I would say, separate from even Rodgers, when Nate Hackett was the Broncos hire, it was a little weird. Yes. And everyone's just well, obviously it's a package deal with Rodgers because this guy was not going to be a head coach anywhere else. Did you see Kyle yesterday said that remember when LaFleur got the job in Green Bay and Kyle thought he might lose, Matt might hire Mike? Remember, to the package deal, he said, I watched his press conference on Wednesday. He's like, I'd never met Nate, or we've never worked together, Nathaniel Hackett, but we were going to hire him potentially when we might have lost Mike to the Packers.
Interesting.
Remember, they kind of blocked them, and people were like, this is fucked up. It's his brother. But he said that Hackett more than likely might have got that job, which LaFleur at the time, right, was the passing game coordinator. It would make some sense. That's what Hackett essentially was for for LaFleur. So they're all kind of interconnected.
Yeah, Paul Hackett, of course, had coached with the Niners for a long time. His dad.
And he coached Kyle. He said when Kyle was worked for Gruden at Tampa, Hackett was the quarterback coach, and he's like, he was a huge mentor to me.
Paul.
Kyle really liked Paul Hackett.
Gotcha. Lives in Marin now. But per that Montana doc. So the Niners this week are playing this team that feels like it's in significant disarray. Now, maybe their defensive coordinator, who's also a UC Davis guy, is good. I mean, they haven't given up a lot of points this year.
You know, all their coordinators had never been coordinators before?
They did. And the part of that story that really blew my mind was that this is only the second time that Nathaniel Hackett's called plays. The other time he called plays, he didn't last the season.
The year before, though, they made the AFC Championship game when he was with the Jags.
Was he calling plays that year?
He was the play caller for the 17 team.
Caller. Okay.
Yeah, and then the next year, obviously, expectations sky high. Jags became the Jags again, and he didn't last long.
Kyle Shanahan, the monsoon was the excuse when they lost to the Bears. There would be no excuses for losing to the Broncos this week.
Well, they're favored on the road. I saw a bunch of people like a couple weeks ago. This is pretty crazy. Even if you're viewed both these two teams as being powerhouses, before we learned about the Broncos, before Trey got hurt, you would have been, me and you just went through the first month of lines, right? You would have been like Broncos -3 or Broncos -2, right? At home, Sunday Night Football against a young quarterback. Like they would have been favored because you would assume they would have looked solid. Even if you thought it was going to be bumpy, no one would have guessed it would have been. They're counting down the play clock last week in Denver, counting down the play clock. So this guy feels completely overwhelmed. One thing Kyle was asked about is like, they kind of piggybacked on this, like the struggles of making the transition to become a head coach. And Kyle's like, well, I just kind of leaned back on all my experiences of being a coordinator. Like you kind of like get put in pressure situations, even though it's only half the team. And you think about this guy really doesn't have that many experiences for years because the last 3 years, let's face it, he wasn't calling the plays. Like, to me, I'd be fascinated to ask like a Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid or whoever, even LaFleur in Green Bay, when you're or McVay, the offensive coordinator for a head coach who's calling the plays, is your job really much closer to being the quarterback coach, or is it actually closer to being the coordinator? Like and maybe it changes team to team, coach to coach, but there's definitely a gap. Right.
Yeah. Well, like I'll give you an example. I talked to a guy who you know really well, who's a college coordinator, who actually he's a college quarterbacks coach, whose head coach calls the plays. And I asked him, how does this work exactly? Because anyone who follows football has heard about co-coordinators, and it's never, two situations are not identical. And he said the head coach calls most of the plays. Sometimes he'll say to me, hey, you got the next 5. Or one of his jobs as the quarterback coach is to stack up plays for the next drive. So he'll stack up plays. He'll tell the coach, here's what I think we should do. And the coach might use the plays that quarterback's coach, co-OC, has stacked up for him. But he might also...
Because when they're on defense, the head coach is pretty locked in. He's focused on his kind of tasks.
That's right. So as the coach is watching his defense, the QB coach will make a list in order of plays he thinks they should call on the next drive. And sometimes he'll use them exactly, and sometimes he'll mix them up. So there's just one example of how it works with co-coordinators.
Well, think about being the head coach, right? When you're not even that comfortable being just the pure play caller, and you got all this shit going on. And then all of a sudden, 3 plays in, a turnover happens, and you got to start calling the plays again. I would imagine it's very, very overwhelming. Because on the flip side, there's like Belichick, who's been doing this since 1975 in the NFL, didn't freak out when the Marshawn Lynch thing happened and just looked at Pete Carroll and didn't call a timeout, right? Wasn't just complete, was like he was on a beach, yet it was a Super Bowl with time ticking. And that's the opposite end of the spectrum, right? The experience completely under control, deep breaths. Tomlin always looks pretty together on the sideline, like never looks overwhelmed. Now, granted, he's not calling plays. The Nate Hackett thing is looked. Because the one thing you would say about Kyle Shanahan, we can nitpick an individual play call or whatever. He doesn't ever look overwhelmed on the sideline. Like he's been, I really think after those first couple years, once they got good in 19, he feels very in control. McVay, same thing. He's maybe a little more emotional than Kyle, but like they're just very comfortable with what they're doing. The game plan, the execution, just the game.
But that's
because you've always argued that like a lot of coaches, and historically Andy took the most shit because he was a good coach in time management. And you're like, everyone acts like 90% of people are good. The overwhelming majority, time management, relative to us sitting on our couches, we always complain about it. It's clearly pretty hard, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably easier now, and this is part of the criticism for Hackett. It's not his play calling necessarily that's been criticized. It's the management of the game. But I think part of why he gets no benefit of the doubt now, which in hindsight, even Andy, like now every team, for the most part, you just hire a guy whose job it is to tell you when to go for it, when to use your timeouts.
It wasn't in that article. Nate had hired 7 different guys that do like 3 different things.
Yeah, it's like just have a guy. It's the NFL. You just pay him, tell you when to take the timeouts and when to go for it. Like, well, this shouldn't be a quote unquote decision, right? We talk like, oh, what's he going to do on 4th down? What's his decision? It's like, it's not a decision. You're just following the chart. Now, not everybody follows the chart all the time, but these charts they have, John, it's different than the charts that we have access to on the internet. Like they have specific charts for specific opponents. Every week, the chart's a little different, right?
And based on who they have active, what injuries have factored in. Like there are a lot of variables going on. There's a lot of variables.
But that
on an
part
NFL
has
game.
been the charts, like the game has changed in the last several years. It should
Dramatically.
that part of it should not be. Now, did his chart tell him to let the clock run and then kick a field goal on the road?
Yeah, I think that this guy last week when I watched the game with the sound on, the first play that I saw was the Broncos in punt return, and they were missing their punt returner, and he had to run out and call the timeout. Now, ultimately, Nate Hackett is not the special teams coach, right? It's not necessarily like his role to make sure if there's an injury, if someone rolls an ankle and you got to get a new returner, because that's what I would guess. Because usually, for the most part, punt return. The punt returner hears that and he goes with the group. I'm just going to guess there was an injury throughout the game that led to a transition. A lot going on. No one pays attention. But when you're the head coach, it all falls under your umbrella. And it does feel like a lot of stuff is happening under his umbrella that's loosey-goosey.
Yeah. And I think we look at the Bears and think, I at least look at the Bears. We talked about this before the Bears game that we both picked the Niners to win and cover. That there's a chance their coach is really good. Their coach has been a fantastic defense. Eberflus,
yeah. You're saying
has been a very good defensive coordinator, right? There's a chance that he's just a good coach. There's nothing when you watch the Bears that makes you think they are substandard when it comes to NFL coaching. Time will tell.
Also handled a weird situation, right? Got hired to a job. The head coach didn't show up, right. And it was like, listen, I don't think it's going to work, but I will not dispute like Eberflus's credentials as a quote unquote, just like defensive guy, right?
Yeah. Whereas Hackett, again, I understand why he's there. I even if it's a 10% chance of getting Aaron Rodgers, I think you have to take that chance. Do you agree with that?
I don't blame the Broncos for doing absolutely anything they've done, even if it's going to ruin their franchise, right? If you said, hey, you hire this guy, you have, I think the chances felt a lot higher than 10. Let's say it felt 50. Yeah. Every single person in the history of football would have hired Nate Hackett if you think like this is a pretty good chance to get Aaron Rodgers. Then when that doesn't go through, to me, think how lucky the football gods to just get a guy who's a Hall of Famer who's 32 years old. Now, we can factor in the weirdness, whatever, all the other variables. You would have made that trade. Every single team in league history, given their circumstance, what they had on their roster, and what they had to trade to give them, is there any team that wouldn't have made that trade to get Russell Wilson?
No.
And then once you trade for him, like do you even blame them for giving him the contract? Like just extend him, give him a contract. No. So it's like, now I don't think it's going to work, but I can't fault them for making any of these. Like to me, a lot of people have been saying, why would they give up 3 first-round picks for the project? You can have an argument over that, right? Logic, jumping up to get a quarterback that doesn't evaluate.
We can argue to what degree he's a project. Is he more ready than some people think? Whatever. Yeah.
The Broncos moves
by the book.
If I just would have told you Aaron Rodgers wasn't even in play, Nate Hackett, would you take Nate Hackett to get Russell Wilson? Because that was, I saw Albright has tweeted out, I think we were linked on he was responding to people that Russell was also good to go with Nate Hackett. Like,
gotcha.
Because in fairness to Russell, he influenced the Rams hire, right? When they got Shane Waldron up in Seattle, he really wanted to implement that offense. He pushed Pete, and Pete capitulated, and that's why they ended up with a coach from down there. So it's like, I don't blame them. Like, I think Russell's a weirdo, but I also like would want him at my quarterback instead of Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. I mean,
yeah,
right? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Now he just looks off now, and I think sometimes in the history of sports trades, right? When we were kids, football did not make as many trades as like basketball and baseball. For every no-brainer one that works out and you trade for some future MVP, there have been a lot historically that don't work. More. Even though at the time it was like, God, I would have made that trade too. Eventually, some of these are going to backfire, right? I mean, some of them just do not work. Remember the Patriots a couple years ago, I think traded like a second and third round pick for Mohamed Sanu, backfired. The Rams last year, second and third round pick for Von Miller, which I would say that's not as crazy as some of these first round picks, but in NFL circles, that, you know, most GMs would be like, that's a lot, right? For a rental that's going to leave, and it worked out perfectly. But
only because they won the championship, it worked out.
But Vaughn was kicking at, helped them win.
No, but most trades are not, at least on paper. 32 is past prime, but in the NFL, you should still be a prime age quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Most trades don't involve that guy, and it did with Russ, which is weird. It's a red flag in and of itself that guy's getting traded from an organization that tries to win every year but does not rebuild.
Honestly, the story even dates back, like the more some of these things leaked, that like they were very interested in trading him in 2018. 2018. It was like, well, new GM, new coach. No, it was the guys that drafted him and won a Super Bowl and went to another one with him. It's like the guy that, like, why is John Schneider, you could argue how well thought of he is currently, but like, why at points in time in his career, like John Schneider, one of the best GMs ever. He was the guy that pounded the table for little Russell Wilson. So the guy that pounded the table for the quarterback, who then became a Hall of Famer, was thinking about trading him 7 years later. That's an all-time red flag, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Who's playing well, right? It wasn't, Wentz. It was like, well, he sucked. Like Russell in 18, wasn't he trending up?
18. I mean, was it 20 that he looked like the MVP for half the year?
I thought like the stretch from like 18, 19, and 20, it was like, is Russell just in the peak of his powers? How does he get that much better than this guy?
Or maybe it was 21. Maybe it was last year that Russ like spent the first half of the year.
Schneider's like, give me the guy from Fireball. Take the little man off my hands.
Yeah. I will risk it all again. I will trade Russ. In 18, it would have been even crazier than it felt in 21.
Would have been nuts for Josh Allen.
For Josh Allen? I mean, when you really think about it, if he had done that, he would be viewed right. He would be on his way to the Hall of Fame.
Assuming that Josh would have became Josh.
I'm just saying, he would be on his way to the Hall of Fame.
If Josh became Josh, it would have been one of the great transactions. Like, just wait, you drafted Russ in the third round, then you utilized him to kick ass, take names, and then you pivoted in a weird way when everyone thought you were nuts for a guy that's better.
They would have got more for Russ then than they got this year, too.
Yeah. Well, Russ, you and I remember talked about it, like Russ straight up for the number one pick. Like, what would it have taken? Russ, the number one pick, and then like another one? Or the number one pick's a lot.
I think you would have got more. I think at that time, especially in 18, you're looking at Russ like a
number one pick,
Hall of
like
Famer.
Russ, the number one pick, and like a 1 and a 2.
Well, just look at number one picks. I mean, we're flipping. Who was the number one pick that year?
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, we're fucking flipping coins.
And
everyone knows it.
But we know the value of the first pick is really high relative to like the 14.
But I still think it's worth, I think a Hall of Fame quarterback in his prime is worth more than 1-1, even if it's number one.
I mean, they've really
like, John, what are you going to do with this pick? Just curious. Josh Allen. Like, okay, yeah, here. Real Deal Sports on the stream says, I don't care about the stats and the struggles. We need a win on Sunday over a team that's looked extremely mediocre thus far. You know what I thought of when I started thinking about kind of this matchup in terms of the coaches was the Mike Pettin quote when the Browns played the Jim Tom Sula Niners. And Mike Pettin said, basically, everyone's making fun of us. I just drove by. They got their building's on fire. And that's how I think you should look at the Broncos right now.
I think Kyle was OC at the time he said that.
Kyle was the Browns OC that year?
He was definitely the Browns OC 1 year with Mike Pettin. I don't know if it was that year.
Head-to-head with Tom Sula?
I think it was 14. I think that might have been 2015. So he might have just missed him. This game's big. There's just no way around it. And I would say that the two storylines in this game are just pretty massive, right? Is this coach going to get fired, and can Jimmy Garoppolo save the Niners? Like these are just massive. Currently, they're two of the bigger storylines in the NFL, right? Like tangible. Like, is Nate Hackett going to last through October, and can Jimmy Garoppolo just get the Niners to be a powerhouse? Like they just, I mean, two of the most talked about teams currently, given those two individual headlines.
Yep.
And Russ, kind of intertwined with Nate, but I do feel like Nate Hackett's taken most of the bullets.
Well, take an alternative perspective. When we're on YouTube live on Sunday night, if the Broncos have somehow beaten the Niners, the number one topic Garoppolo probably will have played poorly. We'll be talking about that. Shanahan, it will feel like he's 1-2 with losses at Denver and Chicago.
Rams coming up.
That'd be pretty terrible. But it would also be that Russ is 18-4 against the Niners if he wins that game. Russell Wilson is 17-4 against the 49ers, 16 regular season games and 1 playoff game. Now, when I said that the other day, somebody pointed out that, Pete Carroll basically, has the same record. He lost a few games before Russ showed up to the Niners, but essentially Pete has the same record as Russ does with a few extra L's on it. And the Niners just manhandled his team the other day, so who cares? What does it matter? Historically, Russ he himself has been a problem. We've watched it, right? His ability to make plays while getting out of the pocket has been a problem for the Niners historically. Does he have enough left to will a team to a win over San Francisco?
One thing I think people are down on Russ, like most people that talk about him as a player do not factor in the weirdness. It's like when you watch him play, the thing that really made him special for a lot of those times when
runner pass, hey 9-6, let him know, runner pass.
I thought that wasn't as cheesy. I mean, you and I with our boy from Tito's, we're on text thread. I got that from other people. I watched Richard Sherman's podcast with KJ Wright. They made fun of it. They're like, guys, this is the NFL. Like, I get maybe in high school you do that, but it's like, why was he screaming so loud? And even KJ Wright is not really some Russell hater. They thought it was really cheesy and weird. And they actually thought, like, KJ's take was you could kind of see the desperation on him. Like, he's just desperate. Like, he's getting embarrassed, right? Like, he's losing and he knows the heat's coming on him. I do think, though, that like people questioning Russell's trajectory, like, is he going to keep getting better, or is he like trending toward being a bad player? He does not look the same mobility wise. And that was a huge reason he was dominated.
Yep.
And you've been saying over and over, and if you watch the game against the Texans, he still throws a beautiful deep ball, but he's throwing a deep ball to not DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, and it's just not being completed. But the ball comes out of his hand, the flight, it's just perfect. You're like, God, it's beautiful. But it ends on the ground with two guys falling. It's not working. And the other thing is they have a dominant running back in this kid from North Carolina, Javonte Williams, and even Melvin Gordon's your backup. Like, they have a good running attack. The whole reason Russell kept getting mad in Seattle was like they wanted to run the ball too much. Like, is he cool with like, hey, Russell, maybe we're trying to run it 30 times. Now, obviously against the Niners, who are going to have a fantastic run defense, it might not work. But just in general, that could help get his career going, because that's kind of what happened to Rodgers. First year, they butted heads. He wanted to throw it all the time. LaFleur convinced him, implement the Shanahan scheme. It'll open up everything. KJ Wright and Richard Sherman said that. They're like, if he just gives in a little bit to the running backs, let them kick ass, it'll open up the passing game. This is why I'm out on him. I feel like he's stubborn. Like, I got to be Peyton Manning. I got to be Tom Brady. And they get all the credit for throwing. Even though, ironically, if you ask Tom or Peyton, they're like, well, if they're just going to give me 6-yard runs every play, I will check into a run every single play. They're actually sneaky, not as obsessed with their historic stats as
nobody
I think people
cares
think.
Nobody cares about like, well, how many pass attempts per game has Tom had? Nobody cares.
But he's had stretches where he throws like 2 touchdowns over a month and they win every game. And people are like, Tom Brady's kicking everyone's ass. You're like, yeah, he is. Now they also can have 5 touchdown games, but so can you, Russ. Who cares?
Part of being a great
you need to win.
Part of quarterback greatness is opportunities present themselves for everybody. The great quarterbacks hit those opportunities more than the average guys do.
Yeah.
Every game, there's chances. Every single game. Do you make the play, though? You only get so many shots to fucking hit Mario Manningham with 2 guys on him down the sideline like Eli has. So I'm with you. Like, I think I thought watching the week 1 game, he was throwing the same balls that he's thrown to DK. Like you said,
he did it against
DK.
Texans too.
He did against the Texans. And he doesn't move like he used to at all. And we started talking about that
not even nearly as close.
He looked thicker. I remember watching him last year as the year went on, and we talked about it. We've been talking about this for a while, that he doesn't look the same. Like, he almost looks hurt, even though his mallet finger was the injury, but it wasn't. All of a sudden, it's like he was out of shape. And I don't mean just big. I mean, like he couldn't get away from anybody. So, that's been the thing. We saw Justin Fields break out. If this Niners team is not going to score points, then they're really susceptible to 1 or 2 plays, broken plays with a quarterback that breaks out and there's Dante Pettis. They're susceptible if they're only going to score 10 to 13 points. But if they score more consistently, then one big play doesn't kill them. And I just think it's going to be hard for him to get away from this Niners defensive front, which right now the Broncos have been a good defense statistically. The Niners have been a really good defense so far. 2 games, whatever. But the Broncos
are good. Like, they got good defensive players, assuming certain plays. Like Bradley Chubb, like they got physical. They're fast. Flexible. They hit. I mean, they are. You just watch them. Their problem, guy. They scored 16 points and 16 points. I mean, they've been terrible in the red. They have not scored.
Red zone. What were they in the? Do you know what they were in the red zone against Houston? They were awful against Seattle.
Yeah, I don't know, but they were not good because I watched some of Nate Hackett talking earlier this week. I mean, they've been putrid because he even said, "I'd boo me too," given what we've done in the red zone.
The classic one.
Now, part of that, like, to me, the Seattle game last week, they threw some fades, like a guy didn't touch both feet in, a guy dropped it. Like, in the Seattle game, the guy fumbled twice on the 1 or 2 yard line, right? That's a little fluky stuff when stuff like that happens. To me, like, when you're not executing pass plays, guys are tripping, like, that's a little more like that's kind of your offense. But the fumble when the guy's going to score is or just the fumble turnover in the baby zone that's just the worst possible play you can have. Like, unless you get a fumble or a pick 6 in the red zone, Herbert style last week, which not really his fault, it was the Everett's. But, like, not, you got to hold on to the football because it's guaranteed 3 points.
Craig says no red zone touchdowns this year for the Broncos.
I mean, I think the 49ers defense looked pretty good. So,
well, if Russ's magic is run out, then Russ is like, it changes everything. It changes what they paid him. It changes the specific things, like with a game, and it changes the big picture of what kind of quarterback they have.
Don't you like the 49ers' chances now to corral him, given he's not as fast and their team speed up front? Like, so when Warner, Alshire, and Greenlaw are coming forward, whether any of them blitz or any of them are spying, you like their speed matched up on Chubby Russ. I would say, obviously, Bosa's speed, non-wet ground, is excellent. I would say adding Drake Jackson there is excellent. Kinlaw and Armstead, for their size, are pretty big-time athletes. I mean, the Niners' athleticism and speed up front is just high level. I mean, part of it was Russ was so elite at just maneuvering, even when you had good athletes. It took, like, Bowman to land them. Now it feels like you don't even – I like Greenlaw on him, spy and run around. Like, I'll take my chances, right?
Yeah.
That's where Russ, like you said, they had to do it. I don't blame him to extend him, but it would be a dramatic – like, he won't be remotely as good. He'll still be solid. Like, I still – like, I'm not saying he'll be like the 24th quarterback, but he's been consistently, I'd say, considered like a top 5 guy. I mean, are we looking at more the 13th best guy? Like, the drop-off could be pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, part of it depends on, does this year, if it continues to go bad, does it serve as a sort of eye-opening experience for Russell? Like, is there a coach out there that can get through the Russell in the same way that LaFleur and Rodgers found a way to work together? Does that guy exist?
Well, if Nate Hackett gets fired, let's just even say at the end of the year, they kind of right the ship and they're in the mix, but they miss the playoffs and he's one and done. Is it a desirable job?
No, I think it's not. Considering that, again, we could go back to the list I made last year. Nobody's career is helped. No offensive coaches' careers have been helped by coaching Russell Wilson.
And you would be minimum given the contract stuck with him for a couple more years, right?
Now, you could argue, you know what? Any NFL head coaching job is desirable. They're going to pay me 6 years and $30 million. So fuck it. and I won't
30.
get blamed.
Yeah,
Well, whatever. I mean, yeah,
60.
60. And I won't get blamed. So whatever. Who cares? Right? Like if you were
Well, like Sean, do you see Sean Payton said, like, yeah, I'd be interested if the right opportunity came back.
yeah, that would be interesting. Like, would Russell listen to Sean Payton? I mean, those are two pretty big egos. So it could not work. But, you know, does this serve as an eye-opening experience for Russ?
Well, if you were Sean Payton and the season gets weird, would you be more interested in Russell Wilson at 33 years old, a little chubby, or Dak Prescott, who just might be average?
I don't know. I might go coach the Cowboys.
Yeah. Well, you got the huge thing with
Because
Denver
I think
is
guys like
the
him,
unknown of the owner.
Yeah. New owner might just pay him through the nose. That's right. They might.
But I mean, unknown, like, what if the guy's weird? He'll fire you too. Like, if you suck.
Yeah. I just think guys like Sean, I don't know, like Kyle, some of these offensive guys I think would rather coach a quarterback that will just do everything they want because I'm good enough. Just do what I tell you to do. I can make you great. Be the coach of the Cowboys and getting Dak Prescott to a Super Bowl would be pretty legendary.
To me, one thing to keep an eye on for the Sean Payton is, and this happened 2 years ago, Urban Meyer came back not for the Jags, but because they had the number 1 overall pick. Now, it was a disaster and is over his skis. Like, if one of a quarterback over the next 2 years is like, this guy is going to be a star, that the number 1 team that's drafting number 1 overall, I would say half the time has a new coach. That would be of interest if you're Sean Payton, right?
Well, yeah, I think the 23 draft will be these guys. So the 24 draft with Caleb Williams, I think he'll be the number 1 pick in 2024. And I think it'll make whatever that job is. It's tough because like the Giants are like, you don't want to be bad again next year. You'll probably draft.
They're 2-0.
Oh yeah, you're right. Actually, they've got the Cowboys this week, which I feel like there'll be an overcorrection on Dallas this week. Like Dallas can't be good for a long time with Cooper Rush, but you and I both thought last week
he looks pretty good.
Okay.
I would say he's a better player than Daniel Jones.
Like who's a year away from being bad?
What's the one thing when the NFL, it's hard to tell because I would have said the Giants are going to be terrible. And what if the Titans this year compete? You would say, well, Vrabel's too good. Well, what if their team just sucks? They play the Raiders, underdog. What if all of a sudden we look up and the Titans are a 3-win team? What do they do?
Tank for Caleb.
But that's a year away. Like they won't want to be bad 2 years in a row.
But can they get out from under Tannehill's contract next year?
Yeah. So you're just saying go with Malik and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's just hard. The NFL is just hard to tell. Like in basketball, you know who's going to suck. Even in baseball, for the most part. In football, would it shock you if the Giants went 7-10 this year?
Are the Colts gonna?
What if Matt Ryan is just completely done and they just can't score?
But they might be bad enough to get a quarterback this year.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what if they win 4 games this year?
Then they won't be waiting until 24 to get a quarterback.
No.
How many more years does Zach Wilson get out of the Jets?
Well, I mean, you just ride Flacco.
Yeah. John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about our friends at Sleep Number. SleepNumber.com/ham right now. Or go to a Sleep Number store to check out special offers for a limited time. John likes the bed a little softer, a little 40. I like a 55. That's my sleep number. A little firmer. But however you sleep, or maybe however your partner sleeps, sleepnumber.com/ham.
Yeah, sleep comfortably all night. Go back to sleep. That's always a key. Sleepers who sleep in pitch black bedrooms are most restful overall and achieve. I never understand. Do you know anyone, or you guys always sleep in pitch black in your homes? Like night lights.
No, I mean I got like some blinds. You could do.
Yeah,
some
no,
curtains.
obviously that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, you don't leave the light on. Some people sleep with the TV on. Like I don't do any of that crap.
No.
But, turn that thing off. Go to sleep. Close your eyes. Get a good night rest.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. You might be listening thinking, I do need to go to bed earlier. I normally go to bed at 11. Screw that. I'm going to bed at 9. No. Just chill out. You don't need to lose 30 pounds in a week. Just go to bed at 10:40. Try, if you usually go to 11, try 10:45. Move it 10, 15-minute increments. Let's take baby steps here. One step in front of the other, little by little, one walks far. So that's the big advice right now. If you're thinking, I just got to dial it back a little. Don't try to go from midnight to 9. Just go from midnight to 11. Let's just take little steps. Agreed. Go from 9:45 to 9:30. Little steps. And use your Sleep IQ technology too. Sleepers who use their 360 smart bed technology enjoy 28 more minutes of restful sleep per night. That's 170 hours per year.
Yep. Do it now. sleepnumber.com/ham. Why choose proven quality sleep from Sleep Number? Because every great day starts the night before. Discover special offers now for a limited time at your local Sleep Number store, sleepnumber.com/ham.
Also brought to you by Butcher Box. Right now, butcherbox.com/ham and code ham get you 2 pounds of free chicken in every order for a year. Free chicken for a year. Chicken, go, go. Free chicken for a year at butcherbox.com/ham, code ham.
Yep. ButcherBox, you and I have been using them for a while. You can personalize boxes, steaks, hamburger meat, obviously chicken. They send us ribs. They even got stuff like lobster. They have it all. You personalize it. They deliver it to your house. Free shipping all over the continental U.S. Choose from a variety of plan options, from curated to customized. I'm a big customizer. Whenever you want, very easy to use. Can't recommend it enough.
If you're thinking, I got all the meat, what do I do with it? Well, they got recipe, inspiration, guides, tips, hacks. It's all there so you can cook up mouth-watering meals. So take chicken breast off the grocery list. ButcherBox is offering all of you an incredible deal that they've never offered before. Free chicken for a year. 2 pounds of free-range organic chicken breast for free in every order when you sign up at butcherbox.com/ham and use the code ham. Claim this deal at butcherbox.com/ham and code ham. By the way, did you see the video of Tua Tagovailoa? All the highlights from the Dolphins comeback against the Ravens, but the guy flipped it, reversed the image, so Tua looked right-handed. And
it looks sweet.
Like when Tua looks right-handed, it looks better.
I don't even think it's debatable, is it? How much better he looks throwing right? How much more natural it looks for any individual? The one deep ball you would have been like, this guy one of the best quarterbacks in the league. That was my first thought.
Be like, oh, great touch. Looks a little left. The one thing you notice when you flip the image is you notice things that you don't notice left-handed, and he does have a little of a kind of a shot put delivery that I didn't quite notice lefty, that I did notice righty. But you can't deny, like, the game that he had the other day was wild. There are some pretty good games this week. AFC games kind of rule the morning. Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs, Colts, Ravens, Pats. And then the afternoon, we got Rams, Cardinals. Both teams, one of those, whoever loses that game is going to be under 500. And then Packers, Tampa, which is an awesome game in the afternoon.
I think that's a playoff type preview game, right? Tampa coming off 2 huge wins. Sunday Night Football to open the week is big at Dallas, and they kicked their ass. And last week was a massive game. I mean, that game felt like Georgia, Alabama in terms of just the South, how big it is, how physical the game was. To me, the number one game, if you said I can only watch one Sunday beside the night one, would be Packers Bucks. Because the AFC thing, like, I don't think the Colts are good, even though I'd fade them from a gambling perspective. I don't think they're going to win, but it won't shock me if they're covered. I do think the Dolphins come back to earth a little bit. I mean, I know the Bills coming off a short week, but they didn't have to travel, so it's at home. I mean, the Bills are just really good. Did the Dolphins, they were losing 30, whatever. What was the score? 35-14?
14, yeah, 35-14.
Like, that was the score. You know, I know they came back, but at one point in time, like, they were getting housed. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm sorry. And same thing with the Cards. Like, I've seen the Cards through 2 weeks. They had a remarkable, like, 15-minute stretch where the quarterback has been doing it since he was in high school and he never lost a game. Do I trust them? No. The Rams, I didn't see any of that game on Sunday. So last night, I was kind of bored flipping channels. I'm like, I was like, you know what? I'll go watch the ending of Browns-Jets, and I'll watch the ending of Falcons-Rams. I was fascinated by Falcons-Rams because they were killing them. Do you know what happened, guy? They got a blocked punt where the guy picked it up and scored. So there's 7 points. Cooper Kupp then fumbled. So they got it. Like, they got 2 turnovers quickly that led to 14 points.
You're
so
saying the Falcons minus 11 bettors got a gift.
Yeah, my point is it's 31-10, and they were just, boom, 15 points. Now, they created it. The sweet block punt where the guy's untouched, comes right up the middle. He's basically in front of the guy's leg. The ball takes him out, but it's such a pure block that people are like, is that roughing? No, it's just an incredible block. And then Cooper Kupp, fucking the guy hits it out of his helmet, or I mean his hands. Ball bounces off like 7 guys, ends up in a Falcon. I mean, and then they were driving to win the game. Like, Mariota was leading them down. Mariota looks feisty, but it went from 31-10 to 31-25 pretty quick because of a couple turnovers.
You think about the Packers-Bucks games, they've been heartbreaking games for the Packers, right? They played twice 2 years ago, blowout early in Tampa, and then they played the game in the playoffs late. That was the game that was very controversial. It made everyone think Aaron wanted out. He was complaining about some of the play calling, some of the decisions. So the Bucks games have been rough for the Packers on a couple of fronts. And I do think Aaron did not throw a touchdown week 1 in the loss to the Vikings. And then, they played a game last week that against Chicago isn't going to impress anybody. So Aaron Rodgers has thrown 2 touchdowns through 2 weeks. That's really done. Now, they didn't have to do much last week, but I do think with Green Bay, there is some question as we try to figure out. I think we've got a pretty good idea what the AFC looks like, who the really good teams in the AFC are. The Packers have been one of the best teams in the NFC for several years now. Are they still going to be that? Now, maybe this isn't the week. Tampa's defense might be the best in the league. So maybe this isn't the week, but I do think the Packers could send a major message if they could find a way to win this game.
I agree. To me, Packers win this game, you'd feel pretty good about them, right? Because one thing they've tried to do is create a team that could hang with the physicality why they've been losing in the playoffs, right? To the Niners, to Tampa. And that's so instead of going to this, they were a little more like Floyd Mayweather, bouncing around the ring, throwing a couple jabs, scoring a bunch of points, looking at the judges. Now they want to be a heavyweight fighter. Like they want to play defense, run the ball down your throat. Can they play with Tampa? It's not like Tampa has a home field advantage, right?
Well, if they find a way to win, they'll be favored in their next 4 games. Green Bay plays the Patriots, the Giants, the Jets, and the Commanders. 3 of those 4 games are in Green Bay. So they play Lambeau Patriots, Lambeau Giants, Lambeau Jets, and then on the road at the Commanders, all before they play the Bills week 8.
So you would say they're winning 3 of those games, whether they win or lose this game. Yeah. So are they a 4-2 team, or are they like a 5-1 team?
Well, right? What I'm saying is their next 4 weeks aren't really going to tell us a lot about them if they're good. Like this is the game, right? They could lose this game by 21 points
and run the table.
The Patriots, the Giants, the Jets, the Commanders. What do I really know about Green Bay?
Yeah, I agree.
So this is a big game for them.
Well, if they're 5-1 with the win at Tampa, we go they're real, right? That first week, whatever, like last year, thrown out the window. Like they got a tough team. They lose this game, you would be like, well, there is a big gap between them and Tampa. Even though it's weird, like is Tampa's
so down this week. That's the other thing.
Well, they're missing 18 million players.
Mike Evans. Judge Sue did not get the Mike Evans appeal, I guess. Why didn't Judge Sue do the Mike Evans appeal?
He was protecting Brady.
We got to build up Judge Sue's brand here.
Yeah.
With some more, some more cases, like when you keep saying the same judge and all the Law and Orders. All right. So we got that game. That's the national Fox game. So no matter what you do, you're getting that game. Rams Cards. One of those teams is going to be 1-2.
I would say it'd be the Cards.
Big bounce back game for the Ravens this week. We talked about Chiefs Colts. Bills Dolphins. I mean, I don't think anyone's Is Mike McDaniel going to beat John Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, and Josh Allen in his first 3 weeks?
He's playing a little bit with house money in this game, right? It's at Buffalo.
Is Tua back if they win this game?
Where's the game? Buffalo, right?
I thought the game was in Miami, but let me stand by.
I think the game's in Buffalo. I thought.
Game's in Miami.
Okay, well, a little less house money, right? Because if you want a chance to win the division, you probably got to split with them.
Yeah. Win the division. If they just make the playoffs, Mike McDaniel might be the coach of the year. I mean, Tua.
They've won 19 games the last 2 years.
I know, but this is a whole. Because if he does it with Tua, they've done it despite Tua the last couple of years. If he does it with Tua,
it'd be impressive.
That in and of itself will be the thing that I think gets him the coach of the year.
I agree there.
Right.
I'm rooting for Mike.
I am too. How can you not? No coach has ever coached in a bigger watch than Mike McDaniel, other than Mike Matheny. He used to wear a big watch. But this guy's wearing like a 50-inch, like fucking airline pilot watch.
What would you guess his watch costs?
$8,000 to $12,000 probably.
Oh, you weren't gonna go. I was gonna go like 50.
Now it's pretty hard to get to $50,000. I think it's like. I think it's probably like a 8 to 15,000. I think it's like a Breitling, which is just a big ass fucking watch.
Oh, there's big. See,
I'll ask Shane. He wears one.
I don't like the big watches on my wrist.
No, I don't either. It doesn't work for me. And honestly, it's too big for him, but whatever. Yeah. He likes
it. But is it? Is it once you're good? Like,
yeah, but whatever. He's got a skinny wrist, but you wear whatever makes you happy. it's your watch. It's not my watch. So what? I'm not here to.
Well, he's got the designer. He's got the designer shades on. I mean, he's cooking with gas right now. That's for sure.
But that's anyway. So we've been talking about. You want to talk about like a Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Fox? You see the Thursday night game last week on Amazon, allegedly outrated the Monday night games, which of course those games were bad. And Amazon, they did Amazon big favor, right? Because they gave him Herbert versus Mahomes. It's hard to beat that.
I mean, when you turned on the television, we're recording this before this Thursday night game, which feels shitty. That game last week at 5:10 or whatever, when they kind of came to Al and Chris and they showed the field and the teams weren't there and there was an empty seat, it felt like SEC, NFL playoff. It felt enormous. That game popped to me on television, like immediately. And then, like you said, I mean, you're just watching for the two quarterbacks. And then the game was good. It was just kind of like a high level. It was going to come down to the end. I'm just fascinated by, you told me that Fox through 2 weeks has been outrating Monday Night Football. Like basically,
I think
Olsen.
it's like up 1%. I read it that it was the afternoon Fox windows outrating Monday night. Yeah.
One thing is just simple in the sport of football. If you told me Georgia, Alabama is playing on Saturday, or USC, Ohio State, or Brady versus Rodgers, it really doesn't matter who calls the game. Obviously, it sounds bigger with Joe and Troy Aikman. They are more famous than Olsen. Even though Burkhardt, I think, kind of resonates with people's ears. We've been hearing him for a long time now calling NFL games.
Yeah. And he's big on, and I would just say this for Burkhardt, like he's Fox's Major League Baseball guy. When you watch the World Series, he's there with Poppy and A-Rod. Right.
Started in New York, so all the New York fans know him, right?
Yeah. They put him, sorry, keep going.
But it does not matter who. Now, you could ruin it, right? You would say the last 3 or 4 years from Monday Night Football, once Gruden left, was a disaster for ESPN because it felt jumbled. It felt people over their head. It was not good. But if you give me two professionals where I think the thing with a football game, unless you're the cream of the crop, like Al Michaels or Joe, like so, as long as you're just solid, I don't even want to notice you. I just kind of want to watch the game.
Yeah.
It's when your team sucks by late in the season, you're like getting the fifth crew and you're like, God, the analyst doesn't even know my team. It's like that. These guys don't even know what's going on. But the Fox afternoon games, I mean, for us afternoon, for the East Coast, like night, it's just consistently one of the best games on television, right? Yeah. As the season goes, it's just Niners-Rams. It's Rodgers-Brady. If the Cowboys are good, it'll be like Cowboys-Eagles. I mean, it's just massive games. It's always like Rodgers, Cowboys. Russell, back when Russell was in Seattle, it'd be like Seattle Rams. I mean, it's the sweetest games consistently. It's usually a top 2 or 3 game of the week. Because sometimes the AFC, I guess it just depends on the year. The broadcast on CBS can be just a little duller than Fox. I don't know. There's something a little more progressive is probably the wrong way to put it, but just like aggressive. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. And so when you get really good teams, it's just consistently, to me, the best game on television. Sunday night, Sunday night's a little dependent, like especially as the season goes, things get out of their control. Fox will just pivot, right? I mean, week to week, they'll just pick the best game of the week for the NFC. Sunday night up until mid to late November, they're set. There's nothing they can do, right? Like if Russell Wilson or if Jimmy Garoppolo didn't exist, it would be Russell versus Brock Purdy, and Sunday night would be fucked. Correct?
Yeah, it was funny. They showed a graphic for Sunday Night Football the other day. Like last Sunday, they promoted this one, and it was Russ. It was an image. It was Russ and
Bosa,
Debo, I think.
Yeah.
And I wondered, had they edited it out, was it Russ and Trey? And they took, they had to edit Trey out of that and put Debo in. I would think it would have been Trey, given how much attention Trey has garnered through the preseason. But you're right. Now you
could have gone Kyle.
Could have gone Kyle. I think Joe and Troy are probably worth more money to Monday Night Football than they're worth to Fox, given what you said on Fox's rating, and that they felt like, hey, we got Burkhardt and Olsen. This is going to be, not a soul's going to watch this broadcast and go, I don't know, not that good. Whereas Monday Night Football has been fighting a brand thing for a few years now, right? Most people don't turn it on and get, Steve Levy, I don't know, I'm not into it. But I think there's just been so much talk. And I think one underrated part, I think we always talk about what are guys worth relative to the quality of the broadcast for fans, but most fans are not that locked in on it. I mean, like the people that listen to this podcast, you guys are by and large probably more hardcore fans than your average fan who just sometimes mostly catches Monday Night Football, but not always, whatever. I think it's about the league. I've read enough of this stuff that it's also about showing the league that you are fully invested in making their product look as good as you possibly can. And you get rewarded when you do that. You get rewarded with Super Bowls. You get rewarded with better games. When you show the league you are all in on its product. And I think when you spend money on Joe and Troy for your ESPN, it's just as much about that as it is about, because I think we laugh like, oh, everyone's giving you shit on Twitter. Who cares? But I don't think it's partly that probably, and just your brand, you kind of eroding your what your brand value is. But I also think it's just showing the league like, hey, no, we are doing everything we need to do. It's going to be when we have the Super Bowl on ABC, it's going to be Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Don't worry about your product.
Well, who was Amazon's ideal combination? It was Al Michaels and Sean McVay. Like that was clearly the combo they were trying to put together, right? That would have been pretty like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Even, who knows how good Sean, it would have been hard for Sean to suck. The star power of those two guys would have been pretty big, right? I mean, that would have been, and they ultimately they ran out of options. They just got a pro who's pretty famous, but
he's not Sean McVay.
Who was their next option? A Hall of Fame guy that just was a general manager in the league. They were going, big game hunting because Amazon, it's pretty clear in our lifetime, it is just not like, I don't exactly know how this is going to play out. Like a CBS, Fox aren't going to die or anything. It doesn't feel like, but we're going to come to a time where like CBS just doesn't have it. Right. Or Fox, in 30, 20 years.
Well, I do think that's where, like, you've seen NBC, with Peacock. I think everyone's going to have to some degree, eventually pivot to some streaming version.
I know, but my point is, like, eventually, if they truly just cared purely about the money, if Fox, YouTube, and Netflix, they wanted to own all the rights, they could who knows? Netflix has been a little down, but you know what I mean? Like, well, Amazon, Apple just wanted to split the NFL. They could double what these networks can afford.
Yeah, but the NFL's not going there until they can also get the most eyeballs. Because the NFL needs...
I know, but I'm talking maybe it's 10 years, but I'm just saying, like, it's not inconceivable if money is the only thing that matters, because they could take so much fucking money.
But it's not the only thing that matters. I'm saying the NFL will be wherever the most eyeballs are going to be. You know what I mean?
Well, like, no, this time around, they were still offering the most money.
Well,
or the money was relatively even, and they just leaned with loyalty.
Yeah, well, but I also think it's eyeballs. Like, you're still going to get more eyeballs on ABC by and large than you will on Amazon.
Yeah, today. But 10 years when this thing's up, society could be dramatically
I'm saying is 10 years from now, it's going to be about eyeballs because they can pay more money right now.
Yeah. Well, their eyeballs are going to infinitely grow.
My ultimate point is the NFL is going to ride the eyeballs on network until there's more eyeballs on streaming. That's my point.
I would push back on if the numbers get so crazy, like whatever their deal just was. I forget that it was a 10 billion or 100 billion, whatever the fucking deal was.
Yeah.
If those, in 10 years, if the eyeballs are still 20, it'd be easier to do that, but it's 7x the amount of revenue or something, just gets to a number.
The NFL is also going to understand we're the NFL, so the eyeballs for the most part will follow us, but I still think it'll have to be close from an
Did you see what Amazon Prime said was a historic day for signups?
Yeah, I mean, they have more. They have like Amazon Prime Video has like 6x more users than DirecTV does.
Which makes sense. Think how many people use Amazon.
Well, less people use DirecTV every year. DirecTV subscriptions are declining.
Yeah, and more people are just using Amazon to deliver stuff.
79 million people have Amazon.
Feels low.
Yeah, I know. There are a couple comments here. Where did this one go? Oh, yeah, this is interesting. It's only going to hurt the Manning cast because I only watched that and I couldn't bear listening to Booger. It is interesting, right? They spent so much money on the Manning cast and then they went and spent so much money on Troy and Joe. But I just think they're at a point where they can't afford to. They couldn't not get Troy and Joe because they'd spent so much on the Manning cast. But can they really do both simultaneously? It doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense.
I have not watched the Manning cast through 2 weeks.
And I liked both those guys.
Me too.
Yeah. Ime Udoka, we'll see where things stand with Brad Stevens coming out of retirement, John. Time will tell. Incarcerated Bob's got some good rumors on his Twitter feed.
There's more to that story. You don't get suspended for a year for just having a consensual sex with another lady in the office. So I'll tell you that much. I think that one's going to be explosive.
Feels like it's like there's a reason people are trying to keep the top on it, but that you can't keep the top on a salacious story like that.
No.
I saw Robert Griffin III had a tweet that was like, if you're more mad about Ime Udoka than you are about Brett Favre, you're part of the problem. And I almost replied, like, why would I even step into that? But it's like, no, Ime Udoka, it's like saying, if you're more mad about the end of Game of Thrones than you are about Brett Favre, you're part of the problem. It's like two completely. Ime Udoka is currently in the NBA and is part of the entertainment bubble, like all the storylines that are part of
in the NBA. He was the head coach for the team that just won, played the Warriors in the finals.
Somebody tweeted me the other day, they're like, "What's your Brett Favre opinion?" And I was I'm like, I don't know what to say. Is there any opinion other than Brett's a scumbag? Like,
he might go to jail. The
no one's talking about Brett. Like, what is the debate? He's a piece of shit.
No one gives a fuck. Yeah, he's just, who gives a fuck? Like you said.
I mean, it's a real life story, but it's not really a sports story at this point.
He might go to jail, and if he does, like,
but he's just been, he's been out of the league forever. Like, it's just and kind of been exposed for a while too.
Ime Udoka didn't they just have a lead in the NBA Finals? As a head coach? Didn't that just happen? Isn't he the head coach of the Boston Celtics? Brett Favre fucking lives in Podunk, nowhere, Mississippi, doing shady shit. Like, yeah, if you cover the Packers or whatever, maybe it's a takeout. No one gives a fuck beside, loser.
Well, yeah, it's like a real news story. Ime Udoka's not a real news story.
I'd rather fucking snort glass than talk about Brett Favre.
Ime Udoka's a sports, like, salacious TMZ sports type story.
Guy, he just got suspended for a year as the head coach. I would say Brett Favre.
You gotta include that, John, for sex.
Do you know what Brett Favre would be a story if he was like the number 2 guy at Fox, right? And they had to suspend him. Like, we would be talking about, like, that's fucking crazy. Is he gonna go to jail? It's like Brett Favre out of our lives, kind of irrelevant, beside the fucking copper commercial he does with Jerry.
Yeah,
just
and he does some. I saw there were some ads for Pray with Brett. I did get some of those targeted ads.
His text messages. Did you see that? I can't even. It's hard to tell what's real and what's not anymore. Like, the text got released between him and the politician,
saying like this can't get out, can it? Those
is that real? I just never. So. Yeah, like the guy, the politician ratted. Like they're going. Like, Brett might go to jail. I mean, this is like to me, fraud. Once it hits numbers, right? Like, if you commit fraud, like $200,000, once you get into the millions, typically. Right. I mean, that's what Martha Stewart, I think, was like $3 or $4 million. Now, Phil was like $1 million insider trading. Like, there's a threshold.
It's not taking money from. It's not like he took money from anywhere, right? He took money that was earmarked for programs for the poorest people.
Someone's like, "Why are you triggered?" Because I saw actually, I went Joe Burrow. I had re-put Twitter back on my phone. I'm like, so many people were talking about Brett Favre compared to Ime Udoka. It's like, do you guys wake up super angry? Like, why is everyone like, why are we so mad about Ime Udoka? Because people are just talking. It's a sex story. Also, and the guy's literally the fucking.
No one's mad about Ime Udoka. Everyone thinks. No one's like, hey, let's just take a step back and hear Brett's side of this story. Not a soul has said that.
Yeah,
everyone's killing him.
And ultimately, do most people care about any of this stuff? Most people are worried about, like, my kids making it home, fucking my inflation, the bills are high. Like, people aren't actually that consumed with any of this stuff. One story's funny, the other story is just completely sad, and the guy's kind of become a joke.
Exactly.
I mean, but I saw a lot of that. Like, why is First Take not talking about Brett Favre? Because they don't want to. I don't know. I mean, it's not their job. Like,
I don't think the consumer wants to watch it. See, we've talked about it too much. It's like it's just not a sports story.
No,
people are just here for sports.
It's a sad story.
It's an awful story.
Turn on CNN. They could use your eyeballs.
All right. Anything else to add for today?
No.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. We will be back Sunday evening. Is it our first Sunday night show of the season?
Well, yeah, I think so. We've done some night shows of the preseason games. Remember, like Friday and Saturday. But Sunday's a little bit better.
All right. Sunday nights. Here we go. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Later.